I want to talk a little bit more about monopoly. There is a type of monopoly that we refer to as a pure monopoly, not a pure monopoly, I'm sorry, that we refer to as a natural monopoly. Typically, those are monopolies that we would typically see as a utility company. We allow them to continue to operate as a monopoly. We don't crack down on them. But because we allow them to operate as a monopoly, we basically regulate them. So as we take a look at a natural monopoly, again, the demand curve, so the natural monopoly, basically the same graph as a pure monopoly. But in terms of regulating them, we say that that allocative and productively efficient means that they operate where price equals marginal cost, and refer in terms of looking at natural monopoly, refer to that as a socially optimal price. So the socially optimal price is where price equals marginal cost. The fair value price is where fair value pricing in terms of how we would price that product that's offered by the utility company. The fair value price is where price equals, we say, the average, the minimum of average total cost. But in this case, we're going to take a look and we're going to say, okay, well, where does average total cost to show on the demand curve? So that's what we're looking for in terms of fair value. And it's not necessarily the minimum. That would be the optimal price in terms of pricing the prices for the utility company. But we're basically going to look at it and say, where does price fall, or where does average total cost hit the demand curve? So the utility company, if they were a pure monopoly, they would price up here. But because they're regulated, we're going to take a look and we're going to say it's going to be somewhere likely to be somewhere slightly above. What's most likely to happen is where price and the average, or where the demand curve intersects the average total cost curve, so that we allow them to continue to earn some accounting profit, not economic profit. And sometimes the socially optimal price may be below down here, and so we'd say, okay, we'd like to do it at the socially optimal price, but that would mean that the utility company may not be earning money. And so basically, that, again, to reiterate, a natural monopoly is utility company. They are regulated, and as a result of being regulated, their costs are looked at probably on an annual basis, and it allows them to change their price level for your electric bill or water bill, et cetera. And that price that you're going to be paying is likely to be somewhere a little bit above the fair value price. Also wanted to take a look at the graph in terms of what happens to consumer and producer surplus when you don't have competition. In other words, I'm going to again compare it to monopoly. So if over here, if we say that there is a lot of competition in terms of the marketplace, and we take a look here and we say that price level is going to be at the equilibrium where demand and supply intersect. And when we draw that horizontal line from the intersection over to the vertical axis, then everything above that horizontal axis is going to be consumer surplus, and everything below that is going to be producer surplus. Now, look what happens where we don't have a lot of competition. In other words, the monopoly price. So this would be the monopoly price. I'm showing the monopoly price, and that again is where you have this intersection of the marginal cost and marginal revenue curve. And so I didn't draw the two lines there, but basically the monopoly price for the pure monopoly is going to be somewhere up here on the demand curve. And so look what happens to consumer surplus and producer surplus. So now consumer surplus is this amount up here. And when we compare, we see that that is going to be less. And look what happens to producer surplus. The producer surplus, where you don't have a lot of competition, is now a bigger amount there. But now there's something else that happens in terms of this is where you're going to have your price. This is where you're going to have your quantity. And so we have triangles here. This represents the consumer surplus. This triangle here, consumer surplus. This triangle here represents producer surplus. Not necessarily a triangle, but now look, we have something, we have another space here. And this space here is referred to deadweight loss. When we don't have competition, what's going to happen is that consumers are going to have less surplus, producers are going to have more surplus, and society is going to lose out in terms of deadweight loss.